Welcome to the seventh episode of Bollywood Talkies with Outlook. I'm your host, Mitrajit Bhattacharya, and tonight my guest is a very special movie personality who's often credited to have created a genre of movies that's quite his own. An award winning writer, director, producer, a fine actor, a socially active citizen, and a man you probably love and definitely don't ignore. Anurag Kashyap, welcome to Bollywood Talkies with Outlook.
Thank you, Mitri. Thank you so much for having me here.
You were born in the turmoil of the 70s in Uttar Pradesh.
Yes.
Born in Gorakhpur, childhood in Obra near Varanasi,
Yeah.
then I think boarding schools in Dehradun and Gwalior. How was
Yes.
growing up as Rinku Singh? Innocent, a bit troubled?
No, I think I became a troubled child after around 77, 78 until I was 5, 6 years old. But I don't remember much before that. My earliest memory is of during the emergency of my father. Oh, he was an engineer, and when he stopped shaving, so my only visual memory is of seeing my father with a beard, which was very shocking for me. So that's my earliest memory. Most of my childhood is what I've kind of captured in Gangs of Wasseypur. Like because I shot in the house that I grew up in, and that's the house where Nagma Khatun gives birth to her child when
That's
Manoj
right.
Bajpayee walks in with the fish. And that mountain where you see a young Faisal sitting is where I used to sit. And that was the time when in the mountains you used to find like porcupines and rattlesnakes.
Wow.
So, so my father's job was like he used to go and set up power. He was part of the team that used to set up powerhouses across UP. So before it was totally set up and before the colonies would come in or the schools would come up, my father would be there. So I've literally spent most of my childhood in places which were not yet, they were all man-made towns, but they were like in the beginning process. So I think that's why my father sent me to boarding school because I was constantly being uprooted and being a troubled child because not having friends which would carry on and not having a normal childhood at that time, So that's why I was sent to the boarding school. And I never want, I was a reluctant, I didn't want to go to the boarding school. And that's why probably I became a troubled child. I was always trying to escape and also being too young in the class because I was sent to school too early. So I was 2 years younger than everyone in my class, always, all my life. So that also becomes one very strange factor that puts you on a back foot.
So I was just watching Udan for probably I don't know how many times yesterday because we had this interview today. And I just want to ask that did we see glimpses of your this life later when you wrote Udan?
Udan actually came from Vikramaditya Motwani, but yeah, I added a lot of part of my life because I went to the boarding school. I grew up with my father in a small town like that. But the idea and the script and absolutely came from Vikram. While doing the dialogues of the film and helping him come up with the film, I added elements to it. But my father definitely was not
No,
the
no.
character that
Uh,
played by Ronit Roy. But
yeah,
yeah, in the sense, my father wanted me to be like any other North Indian father to have a secure job, a government job. That was the time when government job was more important.
correct.
The most glamorous thing and the newest thing on the horizon was being an MBA, and the computer engineer came after that. But while I was growing up, the most glamorous thing was being an MBA. Otherwise, it was the engineer, doctor, or administrative services. So my father wanted me to be either of these three to have a secure job. So my
Okay.
big struggle was when I decided I wanted to go into movies. That's when he was kind of disappointed.
So you moved to Delhi to study zoology honors
Yeah,
in HR college.
yeah.
So when did this switch happen in your mind that you wanted to do movies? And I've read somewhere that you saw some international movies including Bicycle
Yeah,
Thieves which actually put the germ inside you that you wanted to do movies.
I think I've kind of always been impulsive that way because uh, I wanted to study. I did not want to pursue engineering or anything to do with mathematics because my father was a mathematician, and
Okay.
because he was a mathematician, so he would check on everything, and he wanted you to be as good as him. So if
Right.
you fall any short, that he would
Right.
be very strict. So I just chose streams based on the fact that my father does not understand it. My reason to choose biology was because my father did not understand it.
Right.
My reason
Right.
to choose zoology was that he will have to believe whatever I say, like,
Right.
where it leads me and what it does. But for me, it was when I discovered cinema in a big way at the film festival in Delhi at IFFI in 1993. That's when I decided. Before that, I had no idea that I would go into movies. I'd finished university, I had a gap year, and I discovered cinema, and I decided I want to go to movies, and I left for movies. I left for Bombay. That was the part where my father was kind of very upset that this is not what you ever talked about, and what is this sudden, like, impulse that you have that you want to get into movies.
So when you come to Bombay, you actually did a lot of odd jobs. Like you picked up a job of waiting at the Prithvi Theatre. So tell us a bit about that life. Like, was it courage,
No, it
conviction,
was.
confidence, or was it pure innocence which kept you moving at that point of time till you wrote the script for Satya? So if you could just
No,
talk about
I
that
think
part.
it was mostly innocence. Like, I just had this strong desire to be part of the movies, but I did not know what I can do in the movies. The easiest way in was acting, because
Right.
one thing that really helped me was I had a great command over the language Hindi,
Right.
and I wrote Hindi very well, and I got my first play at Prithvi because of my Hindi. I discovered Mumbai because I was doing theater in Delhi with Jannati Manch, and I went with them to Mumbai first time. So easiest way to be part of the movies. I was ready to do anything. The reason I did odd jobs was I would have done any job to be around, see a process of movie getting made. So I started with acting, and I would get a lot of work. Then I started writing. I discovered writing because I was doing a play, and the director of the play, who's the one who put me in a major role, passed away somehow
Hmm.
suddenly during
Okay.
in the while we were the play was still not out there.
Mhm.
So I kind of wrote a play so that I can put myself in something on stage. But when I put myself into it as an actor, people like the writing so much, and
Okay.
and and the kind of people that you don't imagine. And I was very young. People like Sudhanshu Mishra, Govind Nelani, Shyam Benegal. They're the ones who like said you should write. And suddenly I
Okay.
was picked up, and Govindji gave me lots of stuff to adapt and write. And I was like, I've just written this one small play. Why does everybody think I should write? And then from there on, my journey started, and I started writing. And my capacity to write was a lot, because that was the time when there was no internet, and I still write with my hand, and I could write 100 pages a day, and that was
Okay.
and a, nobody could do that at that time. And that was also the time daily soaps were starting out.
Right.
And I started ghostwriting for daily soaps because I could churn out 3 episodes in a day. So that kind of became my thing. And while being a ghostwriter, I learned how to write, because I would
Right.
make my mistakes which somebody else would correct. But I just was primarily writing dialogues and dialogues and dialogues for characters. And slowly, I learned how to write a script. And
Okay.
in the process, I slowly it just went on. I kept learning, and acting got left behind, and I started to write much more.
So how did Satya happen?
Satya happened similarly, in the sense I was just writing a lot, and I ended up writing a script for Kamal Swaroop, who made Om Darbadar. And Kamal Swaroop was part of a group of filmmakers who were trying to make a film, 1 hour films, and that was independent at that time, high band
Okay.
movies. Sriram Raghavan made a film called Raman Raghav, and
Right.
Shivam Nair was the next who made 1 or 2 films, and he was part of that group. And they were doing these films, a series of films on the very infamous crime cases of India. And I wrote a film on Nagarajan, which Kamal Sarup was supposed to direct. But before Nagarajan, they were supposed to make a film called Auto Narayan, based on Auto Shankar.
That's right.
And what happened was, there's some reason, some discussion going on that the script is not working, and maybe we should work more and more, take more time on the script to make Auto Shankar. And I was desperate. I was like, I know until unless Auto Shankar doesn't get made, Nagarajan will not be made.
Auto
So out of that,
Narayan, right?
yeah, Auto Narayan. Auto
Right.
Narayan was based on Auto Shankar. They changed
Right.
the name to Auto Narayan.
Correct.
So until this Auto Narayan wouldn't be made, my script would not get made. So
Right.
what happened was I said that, can I have a go at the script instead of you shelving the film because you think it's not working? And they
Right.
allowed me to have a go. And I rewrote the script. And Shiv Subramaniam, who was the writer and also the actor, and Shivam Nair, who was the director, they liked what I wrote, and that gave me my first credit as a writer. When I got an official credit as a writer, it was their generosity. They gave me the credit for on a script that I was not supposed to write or not hired to write. And Nagarajan was a script that was supposed to happen next, for which I had found Manoj Bajpayee as an actor because I was a big fan of his theatre days in Delhi. And Nagarajan never happened. But for Manoj Bajpayee also was struggling at that time, and he
Right.
remembered that I was the only one who saw the potential of him playing the lead, and he always remembered that. And he was working on a movie called Daud with Ram Gopal Verma. He was playing one
That's
of the
right.
small characters, and Ram Gopal Verma, seeing his performance, say, "I want to make a much larger film with you, and these are the ideas. Do you know a young writer who is willing to risk and take a go at ideas like this?" And he remembered me, and he got me to meet Ram Gopal Verma. And that's how Ram Gopal Verma saw Auto Narayan, and that's how Satya happened.
Fabulous. You had a pretty strange relationship with CBFC when they wouldn't approve almost of anything you did between 2000 and 2006.
Yeah.
What were the typical conversations inside a CBFC office, and who did not get whom?
No, it was very simple. They were just following everything by the book. So what happens is, it took me a long time to understand how it works. Initially, I was just like, the first time I was facing the examining committee and they said, "What is this film?" And it's like, when they saw Panch, I said, "Cinema means healthy entertainment. Your film is neither healthy nor entertaining. And why would you want to make something like this?" And I fought, like, because I was young and I was like a child, and I fought. I said, "This is what cinema is. You don't know cinema." And I started teaching them cinema, and they started teaching me cinema. And it was an argument that went haywire. And nobody told me that, there are four stages of censorship, like, of certification board.
Certification.
Yeah. So there's a primary examining committee, then there's a revising committee. Had we gone to revising committee instead of having that fight, the film would have been cleared.
Correct.
But there was nobody to guide me. So we went to the examining committee, and the film was not a film with big stars. So it became a great tool for promotion for people who had invested in the film. Everybody was so focused on that it got lost. And I was also happy at that time because suddenly there was holding screenings of the movie, and there were as many as 200 screenings, and the whole industry was watching it, and they're talking about it, and they wanted to give me more work. So it was kind of working out for me. But the thing is, it took me that and Black Friday and everything to understand the process of certification, because that there are four stages. So if a film is refused at examining committee, then you go to revising. If it's refused there, then you go to FCAT, and then finally there's a court.
Correct. Correct.
So after Black Friday got cleared by CBFC, but Black Friday got stuck because the case was still sub judice. That has been a lot of learning for me, that how it really works. And there is a system in place. If you're willing to follow it and fight it out, and if you really believe in what you have done, and you're coming from a place of artistic integrity, then you can really fight out the system and have your film out there.
That's what
Yeah,
you
after
did
that,
many years later with Udta Punjab.
yeah,
Many years later.
absolutely. No, I did that
Correct.
with other films also. Other films I did it,
Correct.
and it was very quiet because we never dealt with somebody like a Prahlad Nilani who wanted to make a show of it.
Correct.
Because Prahlad Nilani put us in a corner because
Correct.
he would not even give us the point. See, when you go from one stage to the next, you need to have the objections in your hand.
Correct.
He would not give us objections in writing, and
Yeah.
he disallowed us to go to the next stage.
Okay.
That's why the fight became public.
Correct.
Otherwise, I've had fights on other films which people never found out because they were never public, because everybody was following the process. Even
Right.
the system, even the CBFC was following the process. So Prahlad
Yeah.
Nilani was more like he wanted to run his things his own way. That's why it
Yeah.
became a public fight. Otherwise, I've had fights with censor board, and we have gone from one stage to the second stage to the third stage, but it has always been very quiet.
What did rejection do to you at that stage? You went ahead and did a no smoking, which was full of
Yeah,
smoking scenes, and yet walked away
yeah.
with some award from the health ministry. How bizarre is that?
But that explains how bizarre a country is, because it's like I just called the film No Smoking, but the film actually wasn't anti-smoking, but they just wanted a. They got a poster with John Abraham, who was the star at that time,
That's right.
holding a cigarette and saying no smoking. And that's probably they didn't see beyond that. That's all they wanted to see. So they saw what they wanted to see and gave us an award. And the film got released and got cleared, which explains the world that we are dealing with. But yeah, but and also because the amount of fight that we've had in the past and not giving up somehow just adds to it. So people start
Yeah.
thinking, "Ye to ladega."
So moving on, then you had Dev D in and Gulal also in
Yeah,
2009 and Gangsta Wasipur in 2012, and we
yeah.
suddenly had this new superstar director in the industry who was not conformist and saw things differently. Did success go to your head at that stage, and what was your state of mind?
No, I got scared because every Devdi was came out of the rejection of no smoking by everybody. So it was literally like, I will make a film, I'll give you a love story, I'll give you lots of songs, and I'll give you the most popular love story of all time, and I'll do Devdas. So it came out like that, and that worked. And what I was invested in didn't work, emotionally invested in. So that happened. Then Gulal also came out because Gulal was in the making for a very long time. And success kind of like, suddenly puts you off because the 7 years of ban gave me a lot of perspective. I saw filmmakers, I saw people finding success, losing themselves, then suddenly like, not knowing what to do. So I had a lot of perspective. So I've always been very scared of success. So which is why my reaction to Gulal and Devdi was Girl in Yellow Boots. I wanted to go more independent. I wanted to go out and explore more international space because I wanted to do stuff which was much more closer to me. Similarly, like when I was doing Gangs of Wasepur, we did not know what will happen in Gangs of Wasepur. I thought I was trying to make a commercial film because I needed a very successful box office film so that Yellow Boots gets released. So because we were doing a Gangs of Wasepur is why Viacom picked up A Girl in Yellow Boots and released it. So because nobody was releasing Girl in Yellow Boots. And Gangs of Wasepur, I did not send to the festivals. They wanted to see the film. So I was like, it's a commercial film. Why do you want to see it? But they said, no, we like it. So it got picked up and it became much bigger than what we thought. But right after that, I was supposed to do Bombay Velvet, but I got so scared of Gangs of Wasipur becoming so big, expectations become so huge that I went and made Ugly instead of Bombay Velvet. I delayed Bombay Velvet and I made Ugly thinking that it will kill the expectation. And somehow people liked Ugly and people did not like Bombay Velvet. So the way things you imagine them to happen, they don't happen that way.
The success continued with much later with Mukabas, Marmanziya, still very angsty, I would say.
Yeah,
And then came the most defining moment of the Indian OTT space with Sacred Games. The
yeah.
scale had then shifted towards you very, very decisively. Did you realize what was happening at that point of time?
No, I don't think any of us knew. What happened with Gangs of Wasipur years ago was in 2013, Netflix had made its presence felt in the US. And Netflix reached out to us, and Netflix reached out to me on Facebook. It's not even anything else. Somebody from Netflix, Eric Barmek from Netflix, sent me a message on Facebook,
Wow.
and they reached out to us, and they were like, they wanted Gangs of Wasipur for Netflix US, and they asked us to serialize Gangs of Wasipur. And Guneet Monga, who was the producer, they contacted her, and Guneet came out to us and said they want to serialize Gangs of Wasipur. So we broke down Gangs of Wasipur in 6 parts. My sister, who was also my associate director and now an independent person, she
Right.
broke it down. I was not even part of it. So Gunit Monga and Anubhuti and all those people broke it down. It was released as a 6 part
Miniseries.
miniseries in the US on Netflix. So our relationship with Netflix started then. Then Vikramaditya Motwani met Netflix and they took on Sacred Games. I came aboard Sacred Games as a director only 10 days before the shoot started because there was no
Wow.
other director. Yeah. And we had no idea what was going to happen. And we had no idea. I knew was that with all my movies, their success ratio was less on box office and more in terms of viewership on online. People were torrenting
That's
my
right.
movies and downloading my movies and watching it much more than they were lining up in cinemas. So I knew that online there's a lot of people. So we were like, people will watch our thing because now this is online. But the success was we did not know how, and I'm so scared of, based on my past experience. So every time my film is coming out, I leave the country, I put my phone off. So it has happened with every film. And the film comes out, I just used to get out because I don't want to deal with the success or failure of it because I've seen it affect too much. So Sacred Games also I disappeared. And 3 4 days later, when you realize that what a phenomenal success it has become, it was crazy. It was unprecedented. I don't think any of us realized that because the first season was no expectations and it kind of totally blew out. I think the person who took the biggest risk was Saif Ali Khan, who from films decided to step into an OTT platform. And before that, we had a tiny taste of success with Love Stories.
That's
So
right.
we knew that there is an audience sitting there, and Love Stories was kind of praised a lot. And Sacred Games completely blew through the roof. We did not see it coming, and it set a lot of pressure on us for season two. Like the success of Love Stories set a lot of pressure on us for Ghost Stories. So it also happens, someone there's zero expectation, and people see it completely fresh. And then the expectations build, and that is where the killer comes in. Expectations become the biggest killer.
Lots written about your direction styles, like guerrilla style, on location hidden camera, often asking actors to improvise on set and not given scripts. Like I think for Ugly you had done that. Has your style changed and evolved over the years?
It has evolved in the sense there's a reason for that style because we used to make movies with no money. So what
That's right.
used to happen was we had no money to make movies, and I did not want my films to look like we had no money. So
Right.
we would find locations, perfect conditions. I decided that my entire city is my set. I'll shoot anywhere. If
Right.
the city looks beautiful, if the atmosphere looks beautiful, my film will look beautiful. So
Right.
we started shooting like that. And actors, I needed actors who are good at improvisation,
Correct.
but within the instructions given to them, so that they
Right.
never get out of character. So I would tell them this is what the scene is, this is what you're doing, and I would also give them rough lines, but leave them free within the motion because we are shooting in uncontrolled situations. So if I'm shooting on the street, you never know how somebody on the street is going to react because they don't know there's a shoot going on. Barring my
Right.
actor, nobody knows there's a shot going on. Actors have to be in the moment to respond to any external stimuli.
Right.
So that's why the improvisation works. And we would shoot with hidden cameras so that everything looks real and natural.
Right.
And it also looks much bigger and larger than life rather than it looks like a very low budget film shot on very controlled condition. So over the years, we have evolved the style. Now we have evolved the style in a way that where the camera is always free flowing, everything looks real and seems real. Nothing is ever blocked. It's constantly it has become something else over the years. I think we've kind of now perfected it, but it came out of
Okay.
necessity. It came out of the whole invention of a style came out of not having any other choice but to shoot it that way.
So my next question is on a lighter note. It is often said that Anurag Kashyap movies look big when he doesn't have a budget, and you give him money and you see what happens with Bombay Velvet. So your
Yeah.
comments on that. So it's a funny take, but if you want to answer.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. This is what happens is with big money comes big pressure. I don't have the freedom. I always have people watching you. The
Right.
people are always, and the pressure is on not on delivering a film, but pressure is on delivering an opening. Pressure on
Right.
delivering an interest and tracking.
Right.
So it totally distracts you. Then suddenly, instead of making my story work, I'm trying to figure out how to make it more palatable so it recovers the cost. And when there's no money, I know how to make my film look big. It's okay, but I can
Yeah.
work on that. But then
Yeah.
with which has changed for me with OTT platform. With OTT platform, I don't have the pressure that if my film is not performing for 3 days, it will be thrown out of cinemas.
Right.
It's always there.
Yeah.
So that gives me a lot of strength. So I don't need to resort to those things. Now I can only will tell my stories the way I want to tell them because I know
Not
nobody
like
is knocking
somebody
my
else wants to see. Not
yeah,
how
not like
somebody else wants.
yeah. I've stopped catering. You stop catering to it because there's a fixed menu to what the film needs to have. Now it's like my recipe. And this is my film, and I know it's not if it. People are not discovering it on the first day or second day. They'll discover probably some third day or the fourth day, and they will talk about it, and it'll still be discovered. And I discovered that because a lot of my movies that did not find that much success on box office, like That Girl in Yellow Boots or Raman Raghav, even Ugly, is seen so much on streaming platforms. Streaming platforms, people are watching those films non-stop. So every day I get messages on these old movies that did not I did not get like 5% of those messages when they came out in cinemas. So I realized that there is an audience sitting out there that is consuming these movies and seeing it for what it is. So that for me is an amazing thing.
So I'll slip in the first audience question at this stage. Ajay Thakkar from Mumbai asks that do you get tempted to do more mainstream cinema and the glitz and glamour that come with it?
No, I get very scared of it. I don't talk about my movies till they're coming out. I've learned like my big lesson, Bombay, where there's so much scrutiny and everybody constantly watching everything on that film, who's in it, what is happening. That put me on such a back foot that I will not want to go through that again. I totally step back now. So I'll do my film under the radar. I like to do the film very quietly. I don't want any attention on the film till they see the trailer of the film. So that's how I would like it. That's because that's the way I can be more honest to the film.
Just released Choked on Netflix is probably the most unkashup movie of your life. Is this maturity of a director or is this calm before the storm?
No, no, I would not say anything. I think, a lot of people say that. I even read a review saying that this is like, is this even a Kashyap film? Like my thing is like, who gets to define me? Do I get to define me or the world gets to define? So, like I said, people's expectations are the problem. So what many times when they're watching your film, they're not really watching the film you have made. They're watching their own expectations from it. And so many times people get disappointed because they're expecting it. Like I get so many responses saying that when the character puts her hand in the drain, expecting her hand will get caught or get cut off, or when the bank robbery happens, somebody will get shot. But that's not what the film is. I want to stick to the script that I found, to the writer who wrote the script, and don't want to change the grain of the script. And what the expectations, what happens is everybody expects me to make the next gangster movie or make the next crime thriller. And that's not something that I want to do all the time. I want to do so much more with what I can do. And I want to explore things for myself. So I would much rather have that my audience give that leeway saying, let's see what he has done now, rather than let's see if he is again giving that same experience that they think comes with my name.
How do you choose your next story? Like, is there an organic, is just that you like a story and you want to tell the story, or do you have a formula in your head that I don't
No,
want to do three gangster movies, I must change the track and do
no,
something? Or is
it's
it
always
very,
like I just respond to something. It's
okay,
like at any given time, I have lots of stories I want to tell.
okay,
So at this moment, also, I have like at least three ready scripts, so many stories. I will start making whatever I find funding for, and whatever I can put it together. So it starts with actors come in on board, then there's funding, then the crew that comes on board, then the time. So everything gets decided on the basis of that. So it's always first the script, the idea, then the actor, then the funding. So everything else before the funding, I do it on my own steam. So whatever gets put together faster, I do it next. So I have my next 2 3 projects lined up because things are in place. Now,
okay,
because of the lockdown, I was almost finishing my
yeah,
next film
right,
before the lockdown happened. So I still have 3
right,
more days of shoot left, and my next film is over and it's done. But I don't
right.
want to talk about it because until the trailer drops.
Tell us about the mutual admiration you have with Danny Boyle. You thanked him in Dev D for a certain camera technique you borrowed from him, and he credited Satya and Black Friday quite openly as inspirations for Slumdog Millionaire. Now, what is the relationship you share with him?
No, there's nothing. In the sense, for me, I was living my life in oblivion when my films were made here and all that. And the thing is, it was him who put me on the world map. When Slumdog came out and he was talking about my movies, and he talked about me so much that for the first time, Venice Film Festival put two of my movies in Venice, both Gulal and Devdi, after release. Festivals always put films which are
That's right.
premiering there. They never
That's
put
right.
films post release. So Venice Film Festival picked out two of my movies, Gulal and Devdi, and put them post-release at the festival and put me on the jury. And it all happened because the attention that Slumdog Millionaire brought to me because of what Danny Boyle talked about me. So for me, I am eternally grateful to him because had it not been for him, I would not have discovered so much more, and I would be totally in oblivion. And he was a big support system for me during Bombay Velvet because he really talked about the script of Bombay Velvet and liked it, because of which there was even an interest shown in the film. Otherwise, nobody would have even attempted something like that. Maybe people were right because the film did work, but even if it got made, any kind of initial interest that was shown into him was because of Danny Boyle.
And what was it in Dave D that you borrowed from his technique? If you could just
No, he
talk a bit about it.
because he shared how he shot Slumdog Millionaire. If you see Slumdog, the way he shot in those crowded slums with a normal DSLR cameras and how he would like take the footage and put it on. He told us how to do that. He just
Okay.
had a small conversation and he gave us courage to just go out and start shooting a film on a DSLR camera, playing and experimenting with it. It was like an experiment that Rajiv Ravi came up with based on the conversation. And we shot stuff and we give it for trial. While we were shooting, we saw the results of it, and which you see in songs like Pardesi and other things. So Rajiv Ravi was and me, we found courage to like go out and experiment because of he talked about his process. Filmmakers never share their processes. Filmmakers don't
Exactly.
share their experiences and discoveries because they somehow keep it like a trade secret. And he's a generous man. Most of these filmmakers from outside, they're very generous, and I thanked him for his generosity.
Let's move away from Anurag the director to Anurag the writer. You continued your successful journey as a screenwriter even when your movies as a director were not working in the early 2000s. Edgy writing in movies from Satya to Shul to Nayak to Yuva to Shunya kept you in business. Take us through your writing habits, quirks, satisfaction highs, letdowns, and inspirations.
This is very early on doing Satya and Shul, I realized that filmmaking is a medium which is a director's medium. It's not a writer's medium. So I started separating myself from the movies that I started to write. What happens is you when you write something, you get very possessive about it, and you start to you will only end up feeling disappointed because the director makes his own film. So I started very early on. I would, even if I rewrite a film, I would only take the dialogue credit because I started only taking the dialogue credit simply because I thought that was my role. Anything extra that I did was because of myself, not because I was asked to do. And just to keep myself separate, and I could write spoken language and very pithy conversations, and I would just put it together and hand it over and disappear because I didn't want to be part of the process more, because I was more focused by then on making my own film. Then came a time period where I was waiting for my films and I was really not focused. That's the time when I wrote some of my very bad films because I wrote the dialogues for the easiest films because none of them were original movies that I wrote dialogues for. And in my head, I was dealing with my guilt of, okay, I'm not writing the screenplay. Somebody else is getting the credit of the screenplay. So they get the guilt or the blame of stealing a Hollywood film or some other film. I just do the dialogue. So I'm saved from that kind of a accusation. It's a way you tell yourself. But I needed to go out and work or do something because I couldn't afford to stay depressed because I had a child by then and I had a home to run. So I would take on easier jobs of lesser filmmakers did not, who were very happy copying some movie. And I would only take dialogue credit and it was easy money for me. So post all those films that I was very proud of came that phase. And often the good films that I picked up to write, like movies that I'm very proud of, like Mixed Doubles, they were very low budget. Rajat
Right.
Kapoor's film. They never had the money. So I would do one of those two films to, in my eyes, redeem myself.
Right.
But I
Right.
mostly did lots of films that I'm embarrassed about in that 3-4 years of when my films were banned. But yeah, but it's only also because I could write so fast. I could deliver a script in 3-4 days. So that became
Wow.
my survival method rather than actually expressing myself. I really did not express myself in those 3 4 years. It was just writing on hire.
And do you have any writing quirks or kind of
So,
inspirations or whatever? Is there anything, or you
so
just write? That's it.
I just write. I write. I still write with my pen on paper. I can't type, so I always write pen on paper, and I just go in a flow. I always start writing at the beginning and I end with the end. So my writing
Okay.
habit has stayed the same. The only thing is I can't write as fast and as much as I used to because my hands get tired now. I get
Right.
tennis elbow. So I
Right.
don't go beyond uh, 30 to 40 pages a day on a good day. And on a bad day, it's like 2 to 5 pages. That's it. Hard to find a good pen, good fountain pen and things because all the pens have those cartridges now. And that for me really doesn't work. I like a pen with a full ink. I used to write with that. I prefer sometimes a Pilot V10,
Okay.
and I can't do with earlier one. I like the pen to flow smoothly because I write on A4 sheet papers and I write with hand. I write my best on air flights, long flights. So whenever I'm on a long haul flight, I've actually written a script because I flew from here to Toronto and flew back within 12 hours just to write a script. So I've done
Oh
stuff
my
like that.
God. Yeah. So
Something.
that's a quirk. Yeah, that's
Uh,
interesting. Yeah.
because that's when you're isolated and
Yeah.
I walk around a lot when I'm writing and the idea is
Right.
floating in my head and I
Right.
write through day and night. It's like it's my own time. And when I'm writing, I generally when I'm writing at home, I sleep on the floor. I don't sleep I don't sleep in the bed when I'm writing. And also I don't know, I have like lots of things that happen sometimes. The 2 3 films I've written abroad, Gangs of Wasseypur I wrote in Madrid. uh, in Amsterdam I wrote Ugly and Raman Raghav. So sometimes I go out and I write. But I need, when I'm writing, I don't like to be interrupted at all by anyone. So people who are with me, they know that. So they're used to that. So they would not. Otherwise, I just like to walk around. And because my thoughts are flowing in my head, I don't like to be interrupted by anyone. Anyone. It doesn't matter. So generally, I switch off from the world when I'm writing.
While we can still physically count the movies you had written and directed, it's almost impossible to track the number of movies you have co-produced and produced. You were an outsider, started as a writer and a director with no significant release till 2007. How did you ace the game as a producer? And congratulations on the launch of your new company, Good Bad Films.
I don't know if I ace the game. I don't know how to. I still don't know. I can be a very good creative producer. I can be like a great bounce board. So I think production started simply by the fact that with a movie like Amir and Udan is because of studios, the insecurity of the studios. The studios would say that if like you will produce Amir if you are on board. So I
Right,
became a producer like that.
right,
I became producer
right,
like that. My skill set is only to work in controlled budget. So
right,
then Udan nobody would touch. So Udan is the first film I actually produced. And
right.
also, what happened at that time, studios were coming in the early 2000, and the studios were coming into India. And what they would do is they turned every director into a co-producer because that saved them money. So
That's right.
every studio would say that, we'll have a 50% partnership and so we can share the profits. So you take lesser money. So all directors were forced into becoming a producer by the studios, and then studios wouldn't like even be transparent on honor the deal, but it was a method devised by the studios. So I was forced to become a producer, and then what happened is because I didn't have any kind of a monetary interest in a lot of independent movies. I just wanted those films that I like to watch for them to get made. So I would lend myself to somebody who I thought was like, if you can use my name to get your film made, then and because I like your script and I trust you, then happily do it. But I would just want to see the finished product because for me, it was very important that I'm lending my name to something that I really like very much. And then what happened was had no other option. We formed AKFPL Films and people started making movies with us because we had a lot of young talent coming in and a lot of newer ideas. But I had never really understood how the production goes. I just know how to. My strengths are understanding a script, understanding somebody's potential, like recognizing if a person can direct a film, recognizing if somebody can act, how to make it in low cost. Those are my strengths. The other things, I always have somebody else deal with it. I don't understand how to distribute. I don't understand how to market. I do not understand everyday money expenses. I know how to like balance the money and economize the money, but I don't know how to get the money. If somebody wants to give you the money, I'm always very wary because I don't know what intention somebody wants to give you the money. I don't understand finances or like taking money on loan. So I have always other people who handle all those things. I only play to my strengths. So anytime you'll see me, I'm never the individual producer. I'm always producing with other people. So my only strengths are actors, judging talent, script, and economizing the film. So I only play to my strength. I don't. My weakness is somebody else's responsibility.
I also love your work as an actor, particularly the cop portrayals in Akira, Imaika Nodigal, and more recently in Bhoomketu. They're all interesting and has an Anurag Kashyap stamp on them. You must be good because other producers are also putting money on you as an actor. How did acting
I
happen and do you like it?
I hate acting. I absolutely hate acting. I hate being in front of camera, whether it's acting or just posing for it. I find it very tiresome. Acting just generally just happened for reasons, like in the sense, Akira happened post Bombay at same studios, and director Murugadoss wanted me to play the role, and my film Bombay had come out and it was already bombed, so I was already on a back foot, so I went in there, but I ended up liking Murugadoss a lot because he's such a great person. So it was a good fun, and he put me on to Imaika Nodigal, and he was like, "Do it for me," and because I had already when you start liking a person and you think this is such a great guy and a good friend. And I said yes to that. Bhoomketu happened because it was a home production and they couldn't find any other actor to play the role, so I had to do it. It's often some other external reason that I've ended up acting because of, but I absolutely don't like acting. I used to
But
enjoy acting on stage, but I also stopped doing that way back. More than 15 years back, I stopped doing that.
keep doing that because we enjoy seeing you on screen. So keep doing that. That's just a suggestion we can put up. That's it. In
Yeah.
the past 75 odd days of lockdown, apart from the promotions, what have you been up to in terms of reading, watching, etc.? And if we know you have a fascinating collection of movie books and DVDs and stuff like this, so what have you been doing?
The first month, I was doing a lot of cooking and watching movies. And then I kind of got bored of it. Now, like I don't watch as much. Now I'm just counting days. First month was still suddenly it was like okay we have time to do things. I honed my cooking skills and I like now like I'm not locked in my own house. So my lockdown happened when I was not in my own house. So I don't have access to
Oh,
my library or my
okay,
books,
okay.
and I don't even have. So I'm back to washing clothes with my own hand. So I'm
Oh,
back to doing a lot of things that we would not do otherwise. But yeah, it's helped me appreciate a lot of things that I would not have otherwise. For example, I go down to pick up a delivery. I have started talking to the security guards who I would never talk to because I never probably paid attention to them because we're always sitting in the car when we are going past. So my original house is where my driver and my help is locked in, and that's a red
ah,
zone, so they can't come out of there.
yeah.
So I'm literally on my own and in this house. And
Mm.
the only good thing that happened was I've had 4 releases during this lockdown, starting with Bumfar and then Bhoomketu and Choked and Ibaleu, like 4 films I was associated with. So I've had things to do non-stop. And initially I put on a lot of weight because of my own cooking. Because when I do my own cooking, I cook in desi ghee. So then
Okay.
after that I start exercising and I started to like cut down on it. So now I'm back to being exercising and not cooking in desi ghee.
Name the next Anurag Kashyap from the new crop of directors who you are ready to put in your money as a producer.
Oh, there's lots of very good filmmakers. They're not the next. Like there's a you just look at it, there's Pratik Watts, there is Vasan Bala, who I like so much. There is I people like Abhishek Chobe, who's one of my favorite filmmakers. There is Ajay Bahel. There is Neeraj Gewan. There's so many. Chaitanya Tamhane. I'm still waiting what he's done after court. I think he's finished his film. I'm dying to see that film. There's so many filmmakers across the country. There's so many of them. I think the youngsters are going to tell us how to make cinema in the future.
Fantastic. Any underrated actor who you would like to see much more on screen?
I would like to. I don't know. I There's so many very good actors. Feel like they don't do a lot of movies. There's one actor who I really like on stage is Atul Kumar, who I don't see in movies a lot, or a Shiba Chadda. There's lots of people, loads of them. There's so many actors I want to work with.
Another audience question at this stage. What do you look for in an actor during the audition? And this is Bharat from New Delhi who asked this question. Basically, what do you
I,
look for?
Honesty. I think because for me, the screen presence is only in the eyes. If your eyes are not in the moment and they're not honest, and everybody acts with their hands and their facial expressions and this and that, which is all false. We don't, when two people talk, they look at each other in their eyes. So I just look for the moment of truth and honesty. That's all. And if an actor doesn't have the truth and honesty in their eyes, then it doesn't matter how good they're good at delivering their dialogues or doing their action or dancing or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I don't want them. So it's just the truth and the honesty.
Your all-time favorite actor, director, movie. You can choose from anywhere in the world.
All-time favorite actor director. My reason, there are too many movies I like. But in last 20 years, my favorite actor director movie is There Will Be Blood. Daniel Day-Lewis, his performance in it, Paul Thomas Anderson's direction, and the film in totality. There Will Be Blood is my favorite film of last 20 years. And my second favorite will be the Korean movie called Memories of Murder in last 20 years. Because there are far too many that I can
Yeah.
name.
People saw you as the leader of the anti-nepotism club, and now your friendship with Karan Johar is well documented, even in his own book. What made the shift? I'm seeing from your
Nothing.
side.
Nothing. I just discovered the person. The person is like, I feel at the other end of the spectrum, he's just like me. He empowers a lot of young filmmakers, people. And we are both, I'm as nepotistic probably as Karan Johar is. Because I will not work with somebody I don't know at all. We all work within our comfort zones. It doesn't come through like having a relationship, but I need to know a person. I need to know their potential. I need to know them for a long time before I'll hire them. So in that way, familiarity is what is very important for me. And that's when I'm able to put trust in someone. I will not sit down with remote unknown. The only time probably I have cast somebody who I did not know at all before the screen test and 2 days before the shoot was Shobita Dhulipala in Raman Raga. She's the only person in my entire career who I just discovered in the screen test, cast her, and we were 2 days away from the shoot. Other than that, I've never cast anyone who I have not known in a very long time. After Shobita, the fastest was probably Pankaj Tripathi, who I saw an audition and through the casting director and cast him at least a month or 15 days before the shoot. So I don't remember a lot of example of people who have cast impulsively without knowing them.
By your own admission, working non-stop for the past 2.5 decades have taken a slight bit of toll on your own family life. Did this lockdown help you to recalibrate some of those relationships?
Yeah, well, I recalibrated those relationships even before the lockdown because I had a lot of time to do that. But yeah, I've like now it definitely lockdown has changed me in the sense that the more conversations that I can listen to from my daughter, well, she has opened up and she started to talk to me more. But I'm the same. I find it very. I'm not used to talking about anything except movies. So I just like I still struggle with it. But yeah, my daughter talks to me much more than she used to before, which is what is very good.
Very good. What's coming up from your desk next?
Right now, nothing. Right now, it's just a movie called AK versus AK, where still again I have acted in for Vikramaditya Motwani. I'm playing myself, so it is not really hard to do. That's all. Rest, I'm just at this moment. I'm unable to write. I'm struggling with writing at the moment. It's the first time that I'm unable to write. So I'm at the
And
moment just.
and why is that so?
I don't know because suddenly writing is not fun. It's like a job. What do you wake up next to? It's like there's nothing to do. So right. So writing was never like that. I would like take time out and cut the world off and go and write. The world is already cut off. Nobody is disturbing me. So
Right.
it's like I have all the time, and suddenly it just doesn't make me write. That's all.
When will shooting resume according to you? And how will the new shoot life be different? Crystal gaze the
Uh,
scenario if you can.
I have no idea. Literally, I can't. I'm not somebody who is going to lead that because I'm going to wait and watch how other people are shooting. Because the way I work and it's very chaotic and very spontaneous, I can't do that if there's with so many restrictions. So I'm going to wait and watch other people. I'm going to adapt to whatever happens. I really have no idea. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
One word answers, we are coming to the close of the interview. If you were not in movies, you would be?
A chef or a teacher?
Anurag Kashyap biopic will be titled?
There would be none.
No, we can.
I,
I mean, I think they'll make a fabulous biopic. So if it
I'm
is
going
done, okay,
to.
let's give it to them.
I'm going to write. I'm going to write it in my will that nobody has a right to do it. They'll have to change the name and everything. Mr. X.
Sex, okay. Favorite solo holiday destination, things you would like to do in your me time?
That's the same thing. It's like always on a dive boat somewhere in the middle of the ocean. So every time I've gone on a solo holiday destination, it's always on a dive boat in the middle of the ocean. I like deep sea diving, and I like to do that a lot.
One celebrity you would like to have coffee with and talk films and drink with and talk about everything but films. So if you can name two celebrities.
On the films, I would just simply like it doesn't matter like however much you listen to Martin Scorsese or Tarantino talk about cinema is endless. I would like to listen to them, not talk to them because whenever they're talking about films, they're so passionate and they talk non-stop like fanboys. There, it's just similarly like how Vasan Bala is in India. When he starts talking about cinema, he doesn't stop. So for me, they're the people I like to sit and listen to talk about cinema. And to people who about everything else but cinema, I would love to get into the head of a Kafka or a Salvador Dali.
Twitter is dot dot dot.
Twitter sometimes is like just a way to make myself feel better when I can't just deal with so much that's going on and it's so obvious and nobody says anything. So sometimes I just let it out because I deal with it and I can't ignore it. And then I can sleep peacefully.
Thank you, Anurag Kashyap, for talking to me on Bollywood Talkies
Thank,
with Outlook. Stay safe.
thank you
See
so
you on
much.
the other side of the break. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.